I'm Jamie S. Rich. I've been working in comics for 20 years. Join me as we dig a little deeper into how comic books are made and get to know the people who make them. This is From the Gutters.
We're here today with Bob Schreck, a pioneering editor in comics who has worked for just about every company there is to work for, from Comico in DC to a short stint at Marvel and at IDW. He's currently the editor at Legendary Comics, where he is editing the Tower Chronicles and a little thing called Pacific Rim, I believe you were part of.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
And it's Legendary Comics, right? Or Legendary Publishing.
Legendary kind of sums it all up, yeah.
That word follows you around because you were originally the legend editor at Dark Horse, which was
correct.
Mike Mignola, Frank Miller, Art Adams, all those guys.
Yep, I was there when Legend was put together, and we brought in Mike Allred, and it all went straight to hell.
Yeah, see, that's most things. You invite the Allreds around.
There goes the whole neighborhood.
The kids show up. It's like they're camping out in the house. But you began your professional life. You were working at conventions in the 1970s. Is that correct?
Correct. Well, I started going to conventions, and I started at the Phil Suling, his first show in '69. I was 14. And then while going to them, I got to meet a lot of people that were budding professionals, guys that I was checking out in fanzines and stuff, Bernie Wrights and all these people. So eventually, I wound up working for creation conventions. In an odd way, through hiring one of the owners of the convention group as my keyboard player in my band. Just all these weird, strange connections. And so, yeah, at around 75, 76 is when I started working. It was before Star Wars, because I remember getting Adam walking over to me going, "Look at this photo. It's Peter Cushing, and he's hanging out with this guy with this weird helmet on." And we're like, "Wow, this is trippy." So I started there, and I worked there for at least a good 5 years.
And that was in New York?
That was in New York, but eventually the big show was Thanksgiving weekend. And then eventually we called them multimedia shows, and we started going all over the country. We ran a show in just about every major city in the country. Sometimes 2 shows on the same weekend. Somebody would be in Detroit, and somebody else would be in LA. So that also kind of just expanded my Rolodex, and, if you don't treat people like garbage, they remember you.
Right. So you were booking comics guests, actors,
everything. Yeah. Especially the Marvel gig. I got the Marvel gig because Lee Sapp quit. This woman, Lee Sapp, who was working there, and she handled all the travel for Marvel. And Carol Kalish knew that I knew everybody's travel plans. Like, "Oh, you like an aisle, you like this." She was like, boom. So she actually hired me for another woman her name was Pam Rutt. And then my first day I started, I think I was wearing a Badger t-shirt, the Mike Baron Badger book. And I know I had big leather spike thing on and some bad baseball cap. And Pam Rutt walked in and went, "Who are you?" And I went, "Well, Carol Kalish." And she just completely flipped out and yelled, "Carol!" and ran out. And it worked out. But I was there for about 6 months in the office, and then another 6 months doing, working from home for them. And then eventually.
So as a kid then in the suburbs, that was your thing, was horror movies and science fiction magazines and all that stuff?
Absolutely. I grew up. I just did a presentation for the Suffolk Community College folks out on Long Island. And the name of it was Corn-Fed Veal. I had a picture of a cow, and that's what I am. I grew up, all the stuff that I was exposed to and that I gravitated to winds up being part of who I am now. Huge King Kong fan. The minute I saw it, it was like, this is the greatest movie ever made. I eventually, at age 9, begged my father to take me to the local library because they were running Citizen Kane, and I heard it was the greatest movie ever. So I expanded out of just the fantasy and science fiction and just started eating all cinema. And then I think I was 12. My older brother Dean, handed me a book and said, "Here, read this." And I just, from that moment on, became this voracious reader. Mostly the science fiction Doubleday science fiction book club, And then again, once I got a little older, started spreading out into other genres and other things.
Do you remember what book it was that he gave you?
Absolutely, it was called the White Mountains, City of Golden Lead, and I'm going to miss the third. It was a trilogy. It was by John Christopher, what we now call YA book. And I think I went through them in 2 days, just like, and then from there I just continued on. English class for me through high school was pretty easy because the teachers would say, "Oh, we're going to read this," and I'd go, "Okay, I'll brush up on it." Me and my buddy Kevin pretty much had read almost everything that was on the roster before we got there. So all those things, the movies, I was fans of Bernie Wrightson or Barry Windsor Smith, all these guys before they had broken. I just was lucky enough and so loved the material that I eventually got an eye that I could go, this person's going to rock, this person could rock, I don't know. But most of the people that I was enamored with, eventually they wound up being pretty successful artists, you know.
And when did Godzilla come into all of this?
Again, around right after King Kong.
Because you're a well-known Godzilla aficionado.
Yes, I can't quit. I love the character even in his serious 1954 original Japanese film, which is a really, really dark, disturbing film.
Yeah, you were the first one that made me watch it in the original cut. You had the laser disc, and you're like, you need to see this. You don't understand.
Yeah, people think he's just this big goofball, and I love the goofball aspect of it. I think it's great when he jumps up and down like an idiot, or he's cursing out mankind, and the translators get upset because he's using very bad language. I embrace both sides of him, but most people, it's getting better now. People are beginning to realize that it was a love letter to Oppenheimer. It was a movie about you watching a mother and her children die slowly of radiation, and it was very close to their heart. And unlike what Ray Harryhausen used to say, it really did embrace all sorts of different. It wasn't just a man in a suit in that first one. There was animation, there was puppetry. The way it was shot was absolutely gorgeous. There's some amazing high contrast, beautiful photography in it. So it's actually a really good film, and unfortunately they put Raymond Burr in it to sell it over here, and they should have had a suit made of and then have somebody inside who could actually act, because it was just his, my buddy Larry would always say, "Well, Your Honor." It's like, he doesn't say that in that one. He says that in another.
It's about everything.
Yeah.
Everything else. So you're at Legendary now, though, and they're working on the next Godzilla film.
Yes.
So presumably that's coming around, and maybe possibly comic book wise, or
you never know.
Have you worked any of the comics before? Did you work in any of them at Dark Horse, or?
I did one Godzilla story at Dark Horse Comics, and Dark Horse Presents. I actually have the cover. I think it wound up being the back cover by Dave Cooper, who is just just the creepiest, greatest artist on earth. And it was Ed Brubaker and John Lewis co-wrote it.
Wow.
And it was really funny. And Saperstein was the gentleman's name who was the American licensor. And I had to fight him for several months because he's like, "Godzilla's not funny." Like, have you seen a Godzilla movie? He's hilarious. He gets shot in the nuts, for crying out loud. He trips over pagodas. He's cursing. I mean, he's hilarious. So I eventually won, because I think, after years of representing this property, the guy decided, well, maybe I should watch one. And he went, "Oh, I guess he is kind of funny." So it was about him molting, like a lizard. He was shedding his skin, and eventually it ends all really well, because children are now sliding off of this slimy skin that is now shed into the streets of Tokyo.
Yeah, I forgot about that.
Yeah, it was just a quick 8-pager, but it was fun. And like I said, Cooper did it all. He did the interior and he did the cover, and I was very lucky to squirrel it out of him, because now his stuff goes for big.
Yeah, because I have because we worked on Dan and Larry with him in Dark Horse Presents as well, and so I've got my favorite Dan and Larry page where the kid's peeing on the cement. And I loved it just because for the lines where the kid's peeing, he's like, "Guy's gonna come in here tomorrow and be like, 'Hey, who peed on my cement?'" Right. And I was like, I gotta have that.
Well, he's just, he should write more.
Yes.
He pretty much sticks to illustration now, but he had a really good sense of humor.
He's got that cartoon show coming up, like Mantis, Puppy, Bird, something. Him and Johnny Ryan created this weird Nickelodeon cartoon. It's like 3 different creatures.
Great.
They don't necessarily go together, but they've got a song.
It doesn't matter.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it looks like Dave Cooper animated.
Wow, that's great. What was the name of that book he did for Fantagraphics? Rumple?
Rumple, yeah.
Rumple.
There was Crumple.
One of the others.
All of his titles were these weird.
Him and Renee French, you always felt disturbed after you, and especially Renee, you look at it and go, no, there's nothing horrible here, but you always hid her book.
Yeah.
Because people would accuse you of having child pornography or something. It's like, no, nothing happens. It just looks creepy.
The book I did it with her at Oni, which was her retrospective, Marbles in My Underpants.
The greatest title of a book ever.
But the cover was an eye chart that was all creatures, and the very top creature is this really cute bunny. And as you go down the eye chart, it gets more and more gross and disturbing. And every convention, some lady would just walk up and go like, "Oh, it's so cute!" Like, no, not that one.